Now, whether it happens or not is another question, but yeah, I can definitely see the interest and why they would be interested.
Chelsea just made a move that could end Enzo Fernandez's grip on the midfield without a single word being said to him directly. No bust-up, no transfer request, no press conference, just a signature on a contract for another midfielder, and suddenly the player who once looked untouchable has to prove he still belongs. Because while Enzo was preparing for another season as one of Chelsea's most important midfielders, the club was quietly finalizing a deal that could change how they see him completely. A new defensive midfielder is reportedly on his way to Chelsea, and this is not a squad player or emergency backup. This is a genuine starter, the kind of signing that doesn't happen to support someone, it happens to replace them. And that one decision could turn Enzo's summer from a victory lap into a fight for his own place in the team. Think about what that actually means for him. He does not have to be dropped to feel the pressure. He does not have to be criticized publicly to feel the threat. He does not even have to lose his place immediately to feel the ground shift beneath him. All he has to do is watch someone else walk into Cobham with the same job description. No transfer request, no public argument, no dramatic announcement that his time is ending, just a new name on the team sheet, and a manager who suddenly has options he did not have before. For months, the assumption around Enzo's situation was simple, almost untouchable. He was the engine of Chelsea's midfield, the player who linked defense to attack. The one name every reporter mentioned first when discussing the club's core identity. That assumption gave him something far more valuable than a starting spot. It gave him leverage in every conversation about his future. If Chelsea ever needed to build a team around one midfielder, everyone assumed that midfielder was going to be him. But assumptions like that only survive as long as nothing changes, and Chelsea just changed everything. The move itself did not arrive with fireworks, and that's exactly what makes it dangerous. There was no farewell tour for Enzo's status, no press conference explaining a shift in strategy. Instead, reports quietly circulated that Chelsea's recruitment team had been monitoring a specific profile for months. A ball-winning, tempo-controlling midfielder who could operate in the precise space Enzo currently occupies. At first, that looked like competition for Moises Caicedo. Now, it increasingly looks like a direct threat to Enzo himself. That distinction matters enormously, and it changes everything about how this story should be read. If the signing was designed to challenge Caicedo, Enzo's position was never really in question. But if the signing is designed to give Chelsea's new manager two elite options in Enzo's own role, the entire calculation flips. Suddenly, the club does not need to have an uncomfortable conversation about whether Enzo deserves his place. They can simply let performances decide it for them. And performances, unlike contracts, offer no guarantees, no safety net, no loyalty. Here is the uncomfortable part Enzo now has to face. A player only feels secure for as long as the club believes it needs him specifically. The moment a club believes it has an equal or better alternative, that security vanishes, even if nobody ever says it out loud. Chelsea may not intend to humiliate Enzo. They may not be trying to push him toward the exit, but intention and outcome are not the same thing, and competition does not need cruelty to be devastatingly effective. It only needs opportunity. Picture the first day of preseason training. Enzo walks in expecting to resume exactly where he left off. Same shirt number, same starting role, same untouchable status within the system. Instead, he finds a new midfielder training in his exact position, being introduced to the same teammates, being assessed by the same coaching staff that once built its entire identity around him. Nothing hostile is said. No one tells him his spot is gone. The message doesn't need words. It's standing right next to him in training kit, day after day. Rivalry like this rarely announces itself. Chelsea are not punishing Enzo. They are not trying to force him out the door. In fact, the opposite could be true. The club may still view him as central to their long-term plans. But wanting a player and creating ruthless competition for that player are not contradictory ideas. A club can value someone enormously and still decide that value is safer when it isn't guaranteed. Those two truths exist at the exact same time, and that overlap is precisely where Enzo's comfort starts to erode. Before this signing, Enzo's side could point to his numbers, his consistency, his sheer importance to the structure Chelsea had built around him. Now, those numbers exist alongside someone else's, and someone else's numbers are new, unproven, and therefore loaded with a kind of potential that established form simply cannot compete with. New signings carry a hope that veterans can never match. Not because they are better, because they are untested, and untested always looks like upside. Money changes the picture too, and it may be the most brutal detail of all. Chelsea reportedly invested a significant fee to complete this signing. That investment alone rewrites the internal politics of team selection. A club does not spend heavily on a midfielder just to leave him rotting on the bench for a full season. Whatever happens with Enzo, the new arrival is almost guaranteed playing time, and that playing time has to be carved from somewhere. It could come from squad rotation, it could come from tactical variation, or it could come straight out of Enzo's minutes. None of this means Enzo is finished at Chelsea. Far from it. He remains one of the most technically gifted midfielders in Europe. He still has the versatility to play across multiple midfield roles, the tournament pedigree that elite clubs covet, and a manager who has previously praised his contribution to the team's identity. This is not a story about talent. It is a story about certainty. And certainty is exactly what Enzo may have just lost overnight. Over the next few months, the truth becomes brutally clear on the training pitch, in matchday squads, and in minutes played, not in anything Chelsea say publicly. If Enzo continues starting every week regardless of the new arrival, this entire competition narrative collapses fast. But if his role becomes rotational, if he starts missing match days he would previously have taken for granted, the story writes itself, and it won't need a single quote from anyone at the club. Meanwhile, the club gains something it never had before: real options. It no longer has to build every plan around one midfielder's fitness, form, or mood. It can rotate, it can rest players strategically, it can adjust tactically without disrupting the entire structure. That flexibility benefits Chelsea regardless of who ultimately starts more matches, and that is exactly why this signing is so significant, even if Enzo remains a regular starter for the rest of the season. Psychologically, this fight is unlike anything Enzo has faced before at Chelsea. It is one thing to compete for a place as a young player still trying to establish yourself. It is something else entirely to compete for a place after already proving yourself as one of the team's most important figures. The adjustment isn't just tactical, it's deeply personal. He now has to prove, week after week, something he genuinely believed he had already proven for good. So when preseason begins and Enzo Fernández walks back into Chelsea's training ground, do not expect a confrontation. There will likely be no interviews about lost status, no public disagreement about playing time, no dramatic transfer saga will explode overnight. The story will be quieter than that, and quiet stories often end up mattering most. A new name will simply appear on the same team sheet, in the same position, fighting for the same shirt. Enzo Fernández, who once seemed completely untouchable in Chelsea's midfield, may discover that untouchable was never actually a guarantee. It was only ever an assumption. And assumptions, as Chelsea just proved in a single stroke of a pen, can change forever.